Here we go. We are live from Raiders HQ. JT along with Eric Allen will have the great Lincoln Kennedy joining us in a few moments. Welcome into our draft coverage for the 2023 NFL Draft, and it is a big one. Full team coverage here from the headquarters of the Silver and Black as we'll take you up to the next 2 hours and then get you ready and turn it over for the Raiders and their pick at number 7 overall in the first round. And EA, a pleasure to work with you again, and this is a big one. It's got a really big feel. I think this has got to turn out to be the best Las Vegas Raiders draft since the team moved to this market.
For sure. Basically coming off of last year where we didn't have a number 1. We got Devontae, which is great, but the Raider fans need to kind of feel that pick, who has some energy, right, who's going to come in right away and help this football team. There's so many options, though, JT, that we have on the board. There's really everyone in this draft from 1 to whoever has a little bit of flaws. So they're going to need someone to kind of give them some juice once they get to their football team. But I'm excited to be here with you, JT.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that the Raiders are going to come out of this night tonight with an impact player that can change the future of this franchise. That is the goal. You don't want to be picking at number 7 or before. But that first pick, remember the first round in the draft, it's just the first round until the Raiders decide what they're going to do in round 2, starting at 38 all the way down to round 7 at 231. We got a lot to get to on this broadcast. We appreciate everybody tuning in on all our different platforms. And to me, out of all the years I've been anchoring this show, one of my favorite shows of the year, I'm not confused. I just know something big's about to happen, and I can't put my finger on it. So we've been talking about this on Raider Nation Radio for months. What do the Raiders do at number 7? Do they move up? Do they stay? Do they trade back? That's something we're going to dive into with Vinny Bonsignore a little bit later on in the show when he joins us from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. But I want to begin with the quarterbacks because I got a sneaky feeling they can take one. They can take one at 7. They can move up to 3. They can drop back to 11 and 12, get one, or they can get one at the end of the first round, i.e. a Hendon Hooker-type player, and make a splash there. We got to start off with the quarterbacks because I think the quarterbacks can go the first 3 out of 4, first 4 out of 6 picks right before the Raiders pick at 7.
For sure. If we stay at 7, I'm not sure if we're going to get the quarterback that it's going to change, who the Raiders organization is for the next couple of years, right? So, again, 7 is a great pick. But if you're going to try and get that quarterback, if you're going to try and go up and get that quarterback, right now the phones have to be ringing. In our building right now, they got to be scrambling upstairs trying to figure out a way to get up so they can get one of those quarterbacks who they think are going to change the direction of our franchise. If not, that 7th pick, when you look back a year from now, 2 years from now, this 7th pick, if it's not the quarterback, if we don't move up, he has to be a game changer, JT. He has to be a big-time guy. We know these quarterbacks in this draft all have great things that they do, have had outstanding college careers, and they need to get to a franchise that's going to allow them to grow and really develop into all-time great franchise-type quarterbacks here. And as we see on the board right now, the Panthers, what do? They need a quarterback. Texans, they need a quarterback. Colts need a quarterback. So we got to find a way, if we're going to get a quarterback, to get above some of those teams that obviously, need a quarterback.
I think the biggest pick in the draft that's going to set the tone on the entire night is number 2 with Houston.
Yes.
As Houston has multiple picks here early, and Houston can get a quarterback at number 2. They could go back to get a quarterback at 12. They can move back a little bit and get it. I think Houston controls this draft. Yes. I really do. And after Deshaun Watson and what they've been through, a lot of people say C.J. Stroud should be a lock at number 2. But that's the same agent as Deshaun Watson, and there's some bad blood within that organization and ownership there. So people believe because of a recent test score of C.J. Stroud, he could be dropping, and maybe he could drop to the Raiders. So let me get this out of the way. From day one, I've been saying defense, and I'm going to anchor this draft by saying defense. That's my pick. I'm not wavering. I want to see defense at number 7. I think a great defensive impact player is there for the Raiders. But here's the big but. If C.J. Stroud drops down to 6 or 7, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a franchise quarterback who can work under Jimmy Garoppolo for a year, then if it's C.J. Stroud, I'm good with that because I think he could go 1 or 1A, which is 2. But reports are now that they could be backing off at him at number 2 if Arizona with Kyler Murray doesn't want him there.
Right.
And what happens if Indianapolis wants Anthony Richardson or Will Levis? And then all of a sudden we're sitting here at 5 when Seattle goes and they go, we're good with Geno.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the Raiders are going, wow, C.J. Stroud dropped all the way to us because I think a couple of weeks ago, everybody knew the reports that the Raiders were interested in trading up to number 1 with Chicago before Carolina did that.
Right.
So we know that the Raiders are interested in a quarterback. Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels have been saying that, and we know Josh McDaniels is an architect of quarterbacks there, but I just don't want to see the Raiders have to give up any draft equity to go up and get one.
up and get one. And whoever quarterback, if a quarterback comes here, he's going to be in the ideal situation. No pressure, no stress to have to come and perform right now. You have Jimmy G, who's a winner, who understands the system. He's a great mentor for quarterbacks. That'll be just an outstanding situation for any quarterback to come in. You say C.J. Stroud, who has great timing, anticipation, runs a little bit better than we all think, coming off of that Georgia game. He's done an outstanding job at Ohio State. And, of course, Bryce Young, just so smart. I remember seeing him in high school at the 7-on-7 camps. Always has been a guy who has a great accuracy, nimble in the pocket, gets it done. And then you see Richardson. I mean, just the athleticism that this young man displays at the combine and in his pro day. Unbelievable what he can do. So you talk about what he can do when the play breaks down and being able to, again, it goes back to which team are these young guys going to get on?
Yeah, it comes back to look at the history of this league. Tom Brady went in the 6th round. That's a throwout statistic.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. Joe Montana in the 3rd round. You can get quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, the last pick of the 1st round. And as we hit the air, everybody, the announcement that Lamar Jackson has agreed to terms on a blockbuster deal with Baltimore the day after Aaron Rodgers was introduced as the quarterback of the Jets. So as we look at these young players here, how amazing is it going to be? I'll give you an example. We're looking at Anthony Richardson here.
Right.
He's going to be taken much higher than Derek Carr, the former quarterback here, Russell Wilson, Montana, Brady, because the league has changed because of the rookie contract for quarterbacks and the 5th-year option. You want to get your quarterback early. You want to secure that quarterback for 5 years, tag him maybe for 6 and 7, and get that player and build the power of your team around that lower contract, even though it's a big number for the quarterback there. That's why Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniel possibly want a quarterback. But if you looked at this defense, and I was the last man standing at those games when you had it off the TV and I was hosting the postgame show, the problem was the defense. And last year, the defense put up a fight. They were in games. We had 5 games with double-digit leads in the second half. That fell apart. Everybody was to blame. Offense, defense, coaches, everybody. Now that's got to get cleaned up. I believe the only way you clean that up drastically is defense. Because you got Jimmy Garoppolo. Think of this offense coming out of the huddle. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow. The depth of the number 1 rusher in all of football with Josh Jacobs under the franchise tag and Jimmy Garoppolo. This offense is loaded. I'm talking loaded. There's not much business to do on this offense other than the offensive line. So would I be shocked if they took a quarterback? No. Would I be surprised if they did? Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And you have to look at this football team and look at the numbers defensively, turnovers. That's been a number that has haunted us for years and years. We were talking about that during the season, the lack of turnovers, the lack of opportunities we give our offense by not taking away the football. So whatever defensive player comes in there or group of defensive players come in, that has to be one of the number 1 skill sets of those players, getting the ball, either a strip sack, an interception, fumble recoveries. That has to be the emphasis of this football team. Again, there's going to be incredible football players that are on this team after the day. All right, it's all about defensively. It's all about getting the football. It's all about getting after the football. At the end of the day, turnover margin wins games for you. Turnover margin puts you in the playoffs. Turnover margin gives you opportunities to win the big game.
Again, the quarterback position is so imperative to the Raiders going forward. If they didn't get Jimmy Garoppolo and they kept Jarrett Stidham, I'd all for be trading up and get a quarterback. Just get the quarterback out of the way, make him the franchise player on this team. But I know that Jimmy Garoppolo can win. I've seen him beat Aaron Rodgers. I've seen him win in the cold. I've seen him win in the domes. He can play. But you only have one chance to get a quarterback. And Vinny Bonsignore is going to join us a little bit later on. And he says it all the time on radio. If you love this quarterback, whoever the Raiders take here at number 7, move up or go back to get or stay, they love this player. This is someone that they've had circled and they have a plan in place. So if it's Jalen Carter, if it's Tyree Wilson, if it's Devin Witherspoon, if it's Anthony Richardson, this whole organization will line up behind this player because Dave Ziegler's a new guy here, and I got a lot of confidence in his scouting department and to clean up the mistakes of the past. We like all the GMs of the past. We're friends with them.
Yes.
But the reason we're in this predicament today is because of some of the awful decisions that were made with first-round picks.
Right.
You can't go through Arnett and Leatherwood. Cleveland Farrell was a decent player, not 4 overall. You can't have all the number 1 picks and number 2 picks no longer on this roster.
Yeah.
So what Dave Ziegler did this past season is he deconstructed the roster while the season was in progress to set him up for tonight.
Yes.
He didn't do that to set up this organization for 2 years from now.
Yeah.
He might want to have a long-term approach here, but Dave's got to pounce tonight, and I am intrigued by this 7th pick. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I've been hearing whispers around the league, what they could be doing. Daniel Jeremiah, all the mock drafts out there. But we wanted to make sure we covered the quarterbacks here because Carolina's, I think, going to go with Bryce Young. If Houston doesn't go with C.J. Stroud, I think the phone's going to ring. And the phone's going to ring for Arizona. Someone's going to jump and get to Arizona for a quarterback. Indy's definitely taking a quarterback. And then Seattle. Detroit doesn't need a quarterback with Jared Goff. It'd be the same thing as Jimmy G.
Right.
Like, why would they? He's got momentum in Detroit.
Yeah, Goff has played well enough
fine.
to, like, hold the quarterback off for this year.
Yeah. Raiders would want a quarterback possibly, and Atlanta desperately needs a quarterback.
Yeah.
Look, Atlanta could jump up from 8 to 3.
They should want, if they want to see their guy, if number 2, if Houston gets an edge rusher, if Houston gets a corner, if Houston gets someone else trades out or whatever, yes, Atlanta Falcons are going to want to jump us if they can find a way to get C.J. Stroud or Will Levis, whoever they covet.
I'm going no quarterback. I'll put my neck out there. What do you say? I say no, but I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if they went quarterback because of everybody whispering in Kansas City that the Raiders wanted to go up to 1 about a month ago, a couple of weeks ago, and the boards are changing now. So I'm keeping that option open.
Well, I think it all comes down to Houston. And they need a quarterback, but they feel maybe they can get back up into with the 12th pick, I believe.
12th pick.
Yeah, the 12th pick, and maybe Hendon Hooker or one of the other quarterbacks are there for them to be able. They're not in the same situation as us, obviously, right, where we have a quarterback who has won in the National Football League, has played in the Super Bowl. So whoever they get, they need a guy on day one to play. He doesn't have the luxury to be able to sit back and learn and listen, understand Las Vegas and where we are and what this football team is all about. So, again, I think we are in a really good situation to either move up and get a quarterback if we want to get that guy or get that all-time, big-time defensive player, JT, whoever it is going to be, the edge rusher, defensive tackle, corner. Somebody got to come in here.
You are my partner on game day, and I can tell you this. I've been saying this for a month on Raider Nation Radio. I want 2 picks in the first round. The 12 picks are nice. Don't need them. I want to get 2 impact players and get out of here tonight and head on out to the Strip and meet Lincoln Kennedy and all the other guys and say they got 2. If not, if they move back and they stockpile picks for day 2, we'll understand the path of the silver and black going forward. When we come back, Lincoln Kennedy will join us from the Raiders draft party. We'll get analysis from him on the offensive line and what's going to happen coming up here. It's the Raider draft, and we're anchoring it from Raiders HQ.
When I got that call, man, it was just like almost an out-of-body experience. Like everything, I don't know, it's just like I felt chills. It was just a great experience. And then I started talking, and I could feel myself like breaking down. I was just like, this is really crazy that this is happening for me.
Hello, Vegas! With the 90th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Dylan Parham.
so my agent, he was just giving me the heads up, like, be prepared. You know, I may get a call soon. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting my mind right. But it's like, it's easy to say, it's easy to get prepared for it until it actually happens. And so once I got that call, man, it's like I almost froze up.
Hello?
Dylan, it's Coach McDaniels from the Raiders.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm glad to hear from you.
Yes, sir. We are going to make you a Raider here at pick 390.
Yes, sir.
90
Yes, sir.
the third round.
Glad to hear that. Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Appreciate that, boss. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
I felt my heart drop. I really tried to get the call. My family was being loud. I was like, okay, I tried to tell everybody to be quiet. I was like, it's really happening. Like, this is really happening. And so I picked up that phone and literally started talking. I broke down, man. I was just like, this is really a blessing that I'm actually like doing this. I was just like, I've been watching for so long. I was like, all the preparation, all the things that it took to get here. I was just like, it's like all the things I've done to get to this point. I was just like, it's finally like actually happening.
Dylan, Dave Ziegler, how are you? Congratulations.
Yes, appreciate it. Thank you. Feeling good right now.
Well, hey, smart, tough, dependable, guys that love football. That's what we're looking to add to this organization.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You embody all of those things, and we're just so excited to have you and joining this organization. We're ready to take the next step here and add more players like you is going to get us there. So enjoy the moment with your family and friends, and we'll be in touch here in a few minutes to get some things coordinated. But congratulations and welcome to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yes, sir. Let's go!
When I finished that phone call, I was just like, it felt like a relief, like everything just waiting and thinking this and thinking that. I was just like, I was constantly waiting to hear that name called, and then finally it happened. It just felt like everything I was waiting for, just everything released. And so I'm thankful and happy.
The Las Vegas Raiders select. We'll do it together. Dylan.
It was way better than I ever experienced. I was just like, for myself, I was just like actually experiencing that. It's just like, I knew my name was coming. And that was the difference. I feel like it's always cool seeing who the first round pick is and who this person gets picked. And somebody you may know in the draft, you're always excited for them, but it's like, it's finally your turn. I was like, that was the greatest feeling I've experienced throughout all of them. And obviously, I'm getting drafted versus just watching it in the past, but I was just like, this time was phenomenal. It was absolutely amazing.
JT and Eric Allen, welcome back to Raiders HQ as we're right underneath the war room. We'll get to Lincoln Kennedy here in a moment. Eric, I'm excited to be here today because the Raiders picked 7. They have an opportunity to change everything here on either side of the ball. As we talked about in the open, I think they did a tremendous amount of work in the offseason on offense. Devontae Adams is back. I think the best receiver in football. Also, Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing, which meant the offensive line had a running back to lead the league in rushing. We're going to get to Lincoln here in a moment. They have got to improve this offensive line. They've got to get at least one player here in the first day and a half that could have an impact.
Yeah, for sure. And what we know from last year's, need a guy who's versatile, who can play tackle, right or left, guard. I mean, they love versatility here, and that's always a great tool to have, particularly coming out of college. You love that fact. We got a lot of picks here, JT, with a lot of outstanding players in this draft who can help this football team get really, really good real quick.
One of the all-time great offensive linemen for the Raiders, Lincoln Kennedy, joins us from the Raiders draft party. What an assignment. I mean, first off, let's get this out of the way. Look at this assignment and where you're at today. How good are you feeling, Lincoln?
I'm feeling wonderful. Well, look, I'm outside in the desert heat. It's good to be with you guys. You're in a comfy studio. I'm outside in the desert heat doing my thing, but hey, I'm not complaining.
That's right.
It looks like he's got a cigar bar set up there for a little bit later on tonight. I can tell you that.
You know how I do it, JT and EA. You already know.
Let's begin first off. Before we had you on here, we talked about the rumors at quarterback, and Jimmy Garoppolo is here. Lincoln, you got a lot of sources around the league, considering the Raiders might have wanted to move up to 1 with Chicago initially, and C.J. Stroud could maybe drop to them, and then there's Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. Do you think the Raiders are tempted to take a quarterback early?
Well, I mean, look, they're obviously going to be tempted because they know they're going to have to address that need later. Jimmy Garoppolo is a quarterback I think is serviceable for the next 2 or 3 years, but you got to have a plan behind them. Now the Raiders are in the 7th pick. I don't think that a qualified quarterback, they need to draft a quarterback at that number 7th pick, but it'll be interesting to see how the first top 4 quarterbacks fall because it's been rumored that the teams in that position are going to clamor for those guys.
Well, Link, I know you do such a great job breaking down offensive linemen all year long, looking at all these great guys. When you start talking about Raiders, we had the most dynamic running back in the National Football League, and it took us maybe 3 or 4 weeks into the season to our line really became constant, right? So you think we need to address someone on the offensive line?
Absolutely. Without a doubt, you need to address the offensive line. I heard your EA earlier after the break coming back talking about, being versatile on the offensive line is key. Absolutely sure. Absolutely right. If your guy can play left, he can play right, that's absolutely a bonus. And I think Illuminor is that swing tackle. I don't think, in my opinion, that Illuminor is an every-game starter. He's serviceable when there's guys being injury, but you got to have somebody to shore that offensive line. Look, I thought they had it with Leatherwood, a few years ago. It turned out it wasn't. Now you're starting over. I don't think you need to use that 7th spot, that 7th pick for an offensive lineman, but I do think you have to address it in this draft.
Yeah, Lincoln, that's interesting because Paris Johnson Jr. has been linked to the Raiders. Also, Peter Skoronski, who's probably the best tackle to go off the board. And I think someone's going to jump in and get one, or if not both of them, in the first 10 or 11 picks here, if we look at this board right now. So that board, the first 2 or 3 could go before 15. So is there a chance, if the Raiders get a great offer to trade back at a 7, but only go to 12 to 15, 16, that they could get the offensive lineman out of the way early and have all that draft equity after that to go defense?
Well, they did that a few years back with Colton Miller when they traded back, with Arizona, and they were able to get Colton Miller. Look, it turned out to be well for them. But my thing is that this team has so many needs that it needs to address, especially on defense. I think you really need to focus that number 7 pick on the defensive player. I really do. I think you can, if you want to come back and revisit the quarterback with 12 picks, you can come back and revisit the quarterback position in the 2nd round, or 3rd round, because he's a project in the making. You could also do that with the offensive line. Look, this draft, guys, I'm telling you, is very deep. It's deep with the offensive tackles, okay? And there's a number of offensive tackles that are probably going to fall into the possible place for the Raiders to pick up, maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round. And the reason why is because if that quarterback sort of carousel doesn't go the way most people project it, there are going to be a number of big, high-profile players left in those top 10 spots, and there's going to be a number of teams that are going to try to jump up there to get them.
Like, one more question for me from the offensive line. Give me a kind of a checklist of what type of offensive lineman you think needs to come in here. I mean, character-wise, personality-wise, what kind of guy you think needs to come in here and he can be helpful for this football team?
Well, look, here's the thing. You need to come in and do the job. We're in one of the most competitive divisions in football, the AFC West. So you got to be able to keep the guys like the Bosa's and then those guys off of the quarterback. You got to be able to move your feet. It's not so much of being a leader right now, in my opinion, EA. It's one of those guys where you got to go out and do the job. Look, this team, the Raiders, like to run the football. So you got to have to be physical. You have to have that nasty side to you and be able to do that. But more importantly, you got to be able to move your feet because Jimmy Garoppolo needs protection. So that's on my checklist. Everything else, the guys that get in this position have shown that on film. But the big thing is that they've got to be able to be fleet-footed and be able to block those fast speed rushers coming around the corner.
Lincoln Kennedy joins us from the Raiders draft party. Lincoln, I wanted to ask you your definition of a developmental player because you were taken in the 1st round in '93 to start and be an impactor. And then you came later in your career to the Raiders, and that's where you found big-time success. So you're an example of a guy who was drafted high, but your developmental years came in Oakland, and then you turned out to be one of the all-time greats for the Raiders. What does this organization need to do now to develop players in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round so they're here? We're talking about star picks the last 3 years in Vegas who aren't even here anymore, let alone being developed. They're either out of the league or with other teams here. So knowing Dave Ziegler and getting to know Josh McDaniels, what do you believe in this coaching staff on how they're going to take those 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks and those players will be vastly improved?
Guys, you have to research players that will fit your scheme. That's what's most important. The Atlanta Falcons, when I came out in 1993, the Atlanta Falcons were running a run and shoot with June Jones. I was not a run and shoot offensive tackle, okay? So that's why it didn't work for us. I was more of a power running what we were doing at the Raiders. That's why the transition was easy for me. But you've got to draft your scheme. Don't take a reach. Don't reach for a player just because it's a sexy pick. Some scouts, some GMs like to draft their board. The most, you go down chronological order and say, this guy was high on my board if he's still available. Well, we don't not need him, but we're going to take him. Some guys draft for scheme. I think this coaching staff with this picks, as important as this year is, as critical as this year is, in my opinion, you have to draft according to your scheme. So those 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks become more invaluable than ever, but you have to draft to your scheme.
Yeah, got to draft scheme. But talent is not bad, though, Lee.
Talent.
As the late, great Al Davis said, you can't ever coach speed. EA, you can't coach heart. But at the same point, it's so critical to fill the voids that are missing on this team so that they're competitive.
Yeah.
Look, the AFC is not getting any weaker. Woo. The AFC is getting stronger. So you have to show that strength. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so, and it's across the board when you talk about the competitiveness and just the overall sheer domination possibility in the AFC. You got to be able to compete with that, guys.
Yeah, got to. And again, when you're on the tackle, you got to deal with those edges, like you were talking about earlier. Those edge rushers are no joke. Okay, so again, I know Tyree Wilson, Texas Tech, and A&M. Got another couple guys. Of course, what do you think the edge guys are going to bring to this year's draft?
Well, it's important because you got to give Max Crosby some help. All right? If you're going to play this style of defense, you got to be able to generate pressure. You got to be able to generate pressure right now. Your corners are playing press man. They're trying to hold up closer and closer to the ball. But here's the thing. You got to be able to generate pressure on the quarterback or get people in the backfield because you can't let the likes of Patrick Mahomes or Justin Herbert sit in the backfield and just survey the field as they will go throw the football, or even a Russell Wilson amongst his struggles. So it's imperative that you get in the backfield as quickly as possible. That's why edge rusher is important.
Well, Lincoln, we're looking at the board here with Will Anderson out of Alabama. I think he'll go early to Arizona at 3. Tyree Wilson is very intriguing to me. The two guys that are intriguing me in the last 45 minutes as we took the air are C.J. Stroud dropping to 7, potentially. If he drops, maybe the Raiders could get the quarterback. But, Lincoln, I think this Tyree Wilson it checks a box for me. I'm a Jalen Carter guy in the interior. I think we need a player that came in like Darrell Russell, go to multiple Pro Bowls, be that type. But what happens if Tyree Wilson drops to 7, and then you're saying, look, Chandler Jones is not going to be Chandler Jones for much longer, and we got the guy opposite of Max for the next 7 or 8 years, and they're booking beasts like we see in San Francisco, what we're seeing with Khalil Mack and Bosa in Los Angeles. That's a defensive player, Lincoln. That checks your box, and that would be a player that could drop to the Raiders at number 7.
My only concern is the foot injury. And the fact that it might prolong or come back to haunt him in the NFL. He suffered a very severe foot injury, and it wasn't the same player last year because they had him more as his 4 technique, which is more of a, inside a press defensive end rather than a true edge rusher. But all the potential in the world, you can't argue with it. Man, 6'6", whatever the pounds was. But, I mean, you can't argue. He's got all the attributes. It's just that, when you have that initial college injury history, I worry about it on the next level. Yeah. I've seen many guys fall off, and that's a big chance. There's a lot of guys out there that you could probably go with if you decide to go that route. But I agree. It's got to go defense, guys.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about Jalen Carter, that defensive tackle that JT was talking about. Just a dominant player in college football. I mean, he walked the walk. He talked the talk. He has the frame. There's no question marks when you talk about a guy on the football field. If he falls to 7, do you see the Raiders getting him?
EA, here's my issue, and I'm not trying to talk like Debbie Downer or anything like that. We were just talking about Tyree Wilson a moment ago, and I told you about the foot injury is my concern. When it comes to Jalen Carter, the off-the-field issues are my concern. And the reason why I say it is this. Over the past couple of years, the Raiders have been poisoned or have been toxic with some of the picks that they picked in their first round, and it's come out of legal troubles. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade on those guys. I'm just saying, if you draft a guy in the first round and he's your first pick and he comes in and he still promotes legal troubles, you're back to square one where you were trying to escape from. I'm not saying the kid's not talented. Very talented. Should prove to be somebody, a playmaker for somebody. I'm just worried about the risk because of the legal troubles. We don't know how that's going to go. We don't know how the dust is going to settle on that. And I would hate for the Raider Nation to be let down because they have another valuable player or another valuable pick goes to someone that they can't use.
It's a very good point as Lincoln Kennedy joins us, wrapping it up right there from the Raiders draft party. I'm going to stay with Carter for a second. The value at 7 for him would be enormous for the Raiders. This is a guy who was going to go 1 or 2 right until what happened with that road incident, and he's been vetted. He's been vetted around the league. So I would assume when we talk about how he's vetted, some teams said not interested, others said mildly interested, and then other teams inside the top 10. Who cares what a team says that has the 18th, 20th pick? They're not getting him.
Yeah.
Okay, they're not going to. Dallas Cowboys aren't going to get him unless they trade up to get him. So if he falls to 7, I think he's the best player and the biggest need. I believe the biggest need for the Raiders is defensive tackle and corner. I think they could wait at 7 and either get Gonzalez or Witherspoon. One of them's going to be there. And Jalen Carter at defensive tackle, we're done. Now the Raiders have a defensive tackle with Max and Chandler Jones, hopefully coming back, and then you can build the wall behind him, a linebacker. Go get the corner and do that. Or Lincoln, as I talked about, my dream scenario is get the corner first and then come back in and get Cansey, get one of these defensive tackles day 1, trade back into the first round. But I really believe the Raiders need a defensive tackle in their first 3 picks because it's been a weakness. You've seen the middle of the field. The middle of the field is wide open because the Raiders can't guard a tight end. They can't get penetration up the middle, and they don't have a linebacker who can cover.
Well, that's why I think, with that first pick, they should go cornerback. They should go to one of the ones that you were talking about, either Gonzalez or Witherspoon. I think that's an ideal pick for number 7. But, when you come to addressing the need at defensive tackle, you've heard me say before, because we talked about it in your pre-games with UNEA, that I appreciate the job the guys are doing up front. The defensive tackles are becoming block eaters. There are a number of block eaters you can get without going and using the first-round pick, if that's the way you want to go. That's schematically wise. You want to be able to have your linebackers from sideline to sideline not be blocked, or you want to block that overloaded front, you need defensive tackles. There are plenty of guys that you can get on day 2 and 3.
I tell you, Link's right on it, because when you're talking about cornerback-wise, you want some pressure in that quarterback's face. You want that ball to kind of come out a little bit high to give you an opportunity to recover if a guy has a step on you, or if he's run an outstanding route. And you respect that. If you have a little more pressure, if Max can push you to the right and then that defensive tackle push the pocket, now you have a sack or you have an overthrow, you have an interception. And that's what defensive football is all about, complementing each other. And I think that's the one thing that we have not done. We have Max, who does an outstanding job putting pressure, but we don't have that complementary piece to really take advantage of how good Max has been playing.
All right, so we have our first rumor coming up right now. We'll put it up on the screen and get it to Lincoln. Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk. Here in Cardinals are trying to send number 3 overall and DeAndre Hopkins to the Titans for number 11 pick plus more. So that's going to be interesting to me because the Cardinals, Lincoln, seem to be the team ready to move out of number 3. They got a lot of holes. J.J. Watt, Kyler Murray is going to start the year hurt. He's injured. He won't be ready to go. They're moving on from DeAndre Hopkins. So, Lincoln, the Cardinals look like the team, possibly along with maybe Houston, that want to move back and accumulate picks to have more picks maybe day 2.
Well, both teams need it. Both teams are in quote-unquote rebuilding mode, and especially with DeAndre Hopkins announcing that he no longer wants to be a Cardinal, and then, change the management and everything and coaching staff, get out with the old, in with the new. So I could see that being, a likely position. They don't need quarterback, and there are a number of teams that are scrambling to get in that top 5 to maybe go for one of those the quarterbacks coming out of college. So that makes perfect sense.
Lincoln, let's stay on the defense before we wrap it up with you in a few minutes here. Patrick Graham was the head coach at the Senior Bowl. And it was a rough year, and I keep hearing 3 words. They say faster, smarter, and more explosive. Faster, smarter, and more explosive. So they're going shopping for him to get those particular players. You spent a lot of time talking to Eric Allen about scheme here. What did you see with his scheme last year that needs to be improved on with different players? Because he didn't have his players, and Dave Ziegler started getting rid of multiple players on that defensive roster to set up tonight.
Well, they play with a heavy loaded front. They play with up to 6 guys on the front line and 1 linebacker, and that leaves a lot of space. It's almost similar to the old 42 defense or 52 defense that the Bears used to play, but it doesn't have the same amount of impact because you don't have the total amount of players. With that being said, you're putting a lot of pressure on your corners to play man, press man, to slow down the receivers and give your rush time to get to the quarterback because it creates a lot of one-on-ones. And even if the offensive line tries to slide or keep somebody in, it still can become defense advantage if you have the right guys doing it. Max Crosby had a tremendous year last year, generating pressure, getting back there, but it's still not enough to keep the people from scoring. So that cornerback position is key. More importantly, having a linebacker that can cover in the middle of the field. As we talked about, you got to have people that can cover the slot and the tight ends because a lot of people are going to those spread formations, and prolific tight ends, I should say, are out there in the National Football League these days. So you got to find somebody. You got one right in our division that has torched us many a times. You got to find someone who can slow down Kelsey. Not stop him, but you got to slow him down.
For sure. And a good point in bringing up the tight ends. That's where we're going to go next. And obviously, we lost 2 of our tight ends last year. This draft has some pretty good tight ends, particularly coming out of Notre Dame, Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid out of Utah, Darnell Washington, the big, gigantic.
From Vegas, went to Georgia, local kid.
Yeah, local kid. What do you think about the Raiders trying to find a tight end in this year's draft?
Well, to me, I think it's possible because it's a deep draft for the position of tight end. And the thing is you don't have to push the panic flag. I know you went out and signed O.J. Howard and Hopper. And look, they're serviceable. But, again, you need a tight end that can stretch the field. You let Darren Waller go for a trade, that's fine. You're moving on from him. But the fact is you got to have somebody who can stretch the field because this offense requires it. If you look at what Coach McDaniels did back in New England, his tight ends from Gronkowski on and his slot receivers paid huge dividends for this offense. So it's absolutely key that you have that ability. Now, Devontae Adams is the best in the league. No one's going to take that away. And you're going to do more with the other guys that you brought on to open things up, to give Garoppolo weapons. He's been accurate. He's been key. But, the key is that you got to be total. If you're going to have that total package, you want to make sure it's unanimous across the board. And there are a couple of tight ends that you can get on day 2 or day 3 as well.
Yeah, Lincoln, that's the last one we want to get in with you is the blocking tight end and the tight end that can catch. They had the perfect storm with Darren Waller, but he wasn't available, especially last year with the injuries. Unfortunate. Raiders went in a different direction. They get the 100th pick overall there in the 3rd round. So ideally, bringing in O.J. Howard, having tight ends that are here that have had chances with other teams, had some highlight moments, want to prove it again. There are a lot of tight ends here. I would love to see the Raiders get a tight end, but again, I don't want to see a tight end in those first 3 or 4 picks. I value the defense too much here, but in the 5th or 6th round, dropping in a tight end from a smaller school that checks all the boxes, I also think that's a need, and it's an important need up front for blocking because Foster Moreau could block. He could block in a big way. We wish him well, and Darren Waller was explosive, putting up stats when healthy.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the thing. Darren Waller struggled with run blocking, so it was a big drop-off that we had, even when he wasn't in there. I mean, we struggled at the position of tight end to remain consistent. And Foster Moreau, of course, we wish him the best of health and coming back, and hopefully he can recover from his ailments. But I would say this, O.J. Howard, the Raiders are notorious, JT, you know this, of giving players 2nd, 3rd chances. This is an O.J. Howard who was a former first-round draft pick out of Alabama, giving him another chance. Now, I hadn't seen the flashes that I saw in college while he was in the National Football League, and who knows what to blame for that. But this is another opportunity for him to make a name for himself. And how about Austin Hooper to taking that next step at becoming one of those notable tight ends around the National Football League? So there are certainly opportunities there, but you also want to make sure you have all your eggs lined up and all your spaces covered. So it's going to be one of those things where they have a person, and I agree with you, they don't need to spend the first 3 picks on the tight end. There'll be plenty of guys still available.
Lincoln, we'll see you out there later tonight. We know you have in-depth interviews, exclusive interviews that we'll be playing later on the broadcast. Thanks so much for giving us your time today. Appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks, Link.
I appreciate it, guys. I got to find somewhere to go get cool. So it's getting high.
There you go, Lincoln Kennedy. We know. You know me. Hey, that's why we get him out of here.
That's right.
Get him out there, get him a beverage. Have a good one, Lincoln. We'll see you in a little bit. That's Lincoln Kennedy, live from the Raiders draft party. Mike Florio, as we throw that tweet up again, is this news? This is what happens now. The best of the insiders are putting out information. Pro Football Talk here in the Cardinals are trying to send the number 3 overall and DeAndre Hopkins to the Titans for the 11th pick plus more. So that would be the Cardinals moving back. What more would they get? Okay, what more would they get from that organization going forward? We'll have to wait and see on this. But I've always thought that the team that could move back was Houston and the Cardinals, 2-3.
Yeah.
But as we've talked about in the opening here, that the Texans have the 12th pick overall, they don't have to move back that far now. It wouldn't be conducive then to go 2-12, then get out of the 2 and have 18. I think they need good players. How long are they going to be bad unless they want to tank for Caleb Williams next year?
And you just
how
don't
do the
know
Houston Texans get out of the draft without a quarterback? They haven't had a quarterback since Deshaun Watson, and it took them 2 years to get away from the Deshaun Watson deal. They got to get a quarterback tonight.
Yeah, duh. I mean, this league is built on getting a quarterback to be the guy early, right? So you can build around him, hopefully get to the Super Bowl, win one, and then if he's great, you don't care about playing him. You don't care. You think the Philadelphia Eagles right now are concerned that they have to pay their quarterback? No, he's taking them to a Super Bowl. He's had a dynamic year. So you want to get a guy, rookie, build around him, fill that team up with great players. Right now, if number 3 is the Titans, that's quarterback.
Yeah, that's
it.
I would think that the Titans would want to go up there for Anthony Richardson. Right. That would be my play. If the Florio tweet comes to fruition, I would think that Anthony Richardson would go number 3. And the reason they'd want to do that is they want to get in front of Indy, who wants Richardson at 4.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Right.
That's what I see what's happening there. Look, as we look at this graphic, if you're listening on radio, we'll tell you the Panthers at 1, Texans at 2. They both need quarterbacks. Cardinals have Kyler Murray. Indy needs a quarterback. Seattle, I'm not sold on Geno, but Geno played well. He's a comeback player of the year. He got a contract.
They're a defensive staff. They're going to look for the best defensive player probably.
At 6, Jared Goff's with Detroit. I think he's safe. Jimmy Garoppolo with the Raiders just put pen to paper. I think he's good here. Atlanta, the Marcus Mariota era is over.
It's gone.
Okay, they need a quarterback. The Bears have Justin Field. And how about the contract that Jalen Hurts got?
Yes.
In Philadelphia. And let's wrap this up by talking about Jalen Hurts for a second. The quarterback news that we've seen in the last 2 to 3 weeks, 2 of the big moves were today and yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're joining us late, the big news, Lamar Jackson has agreed to a 5-year deal. We'll have the specifics coming up. Aaron Rodgers agreed to terms with the Jets. He had his press conference yesterday. But let's not forget Jalen Hurts' contract.
That's right.
That set the bar.
It set the bar.
So you got Aaron Rodgers, you got Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow are about to get paid.
Yes.
If the Raiders don't think that they have a quarterback in their sights tonight, that could be, at a minimum, Jalen Hurts, who was a second-round pick, Lamar Jackson, a Heisman Trophy, the last pick of the first round, then don't go there. You don't have to take Anthony Richardson because you think he could be the next Jalen Hurts or the next Lamar Jackson. Those guys were picked in the second round and the last pick of the first round. That was a value pick. Yeah. Those organizations waited, didn't blow equity moving up.
Right.
So, again, I think the Raiders might be in love with one of these quarterbacks. I don't think it's Levis. It might be Richardson, and it could be C.J. Stroud, who could drop to 7. That's why we're spending some time, EA, on the quarterbacks. Yeah. It is real. The rumors are real with the Raiders at quarterback.
You have to, because of now the phone calls. We understand, and now the public knows about the phone calls. And whenever there's, telephones ringing, you have to answer them. You have to figure out a way. If you believe in a quarterback, if your organization believes in a quarterback, you have to find a way to try and go get him, because you're not sure what's going to happen next year. You're not sure what's going to happen with Caleb Williams or the young man of North Carolina next year. This is what's presented to you right now, right? Will Levis, Hendon Hooker, Anthony Richardson, Stroud, and Young. Those are the kind of guys that you believe as an organization. You think one of those guys are your answer? You got to find a way to go get them.
I think over the last couple of weeks, about 3 weeks ago, Combine month ago, Anthony Richardson was the hot name because he put on a show.
Right.
And then Will Levis took off his shirt, showed his guns. He said, look at me, I'm stronger than all these guys. But now Hendon Hooker's coming on strong.
He is.
He's coming on strong. And I think Hendon Hooker, for some, might have been a third-round grade a month ago. Now he's a first-round grade.
It's the tape. It's the tape, JT, not if you can do a backflip after you throw a bomb and no one's covering him. It's the tape. You turn on the tape, and that's what should catapult a player to here or here. And I'm not even talking about falling, because how can you fall when you're not even drafted yet? So we're all going through this process. These scouts, our departments and all NFL departments, this is the end of the run. It's been a 12-month grind. And here we're at the final party, and all these guys are going to find a place to play, and scheme-wise or talent or whatever. But when you turn on the tape, that should dictate, not the combine. It's just kind of, hey, we can see you. It's the interviews and the tape should matter.
Coming up next, his specialty, E's Keys on the cornerbacks. We got one of the greatest corners of all time, and I say if you're going to get a cornerback, make sure they can get 54 interceptions like the guy to my left as we continue from HQ. It's the Draft Show.
Fans, you can upgrade your event experience to the best seats in the house with our premium seating options. Now is your chance to enjoy an unforgettable time with family and friends in our state-of-the-art suite and loge seats. Limited inventory is available for all upcoming events. So be sure to visit Raiders.com/suites today to learn more about our premium seating offerings.
Raiders actually weren't the team I was looking at. My agent didn't hear anything. They were not on my radar. I remember going into the draft and my agent said, yeah, maybe 5th round, maybe 6th round. I think the Titans might be interested in the 4th round, possibly. 1st round came around, I'm with my siblings and we're in the dorm. I had a couple of friends over and we're just watching the draft, not expecting anything. I think it was right after the 30th pick and I get a call from Al Davis saying, how would you like to be a part of the Raiders? And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like trying to figure out. We're at the end of the 1st round. Paul Tagliabue got up there and butchered my name.
31st selection in the 2003 NFL Draft. The Oakland Raiders select Asomugha Nnamdi, cornerback, California.
Was he trying to say my name? And we couldn't really rejoice because it kind of took the steam out of it. But then my picture showed up and we went crazy. And then my dorm flooded with people that were watching the draft, and everybody just started coming in. They were like, what? Going crazy because I'm at Berkeley and Oakland's 5 minutes away. I think I drove up like an hour later and was walking through the facilities with my cousin and did a press conference, met the team, and then I came into camp. I was 21 years old, ready to go. It was really just Al Davis. I heard from scouts throughout my early years with the Raiders that he was not gonna consider anyone else for that 1st pick. I played safety throughout college, but he saw speed and he saw size, and he said, I think I can develop that guy into an NFL corner. I'm so grateful that it turned out the way it turned out. Not even that I went in the 1st round, but that I was at an organization that cared so much about family. It's a beautiful thing.
And a kind of common thread with a lot of you guys. I mean, you look at you and Jimmy and Jacoby, guys that have won, guys that have won a lot in the National Football League. Like, how valuable is that skill of just knowing how to win?
I think it's very valuable. You can't put a price tag on experience. So obviously us having been in those places where, we've experienced some of that, and, it's valuable that our head coach has as well. So, obviously this is a different environment, different situation. So, we just got to put the work in every day and put it all together here.
Every audition is super special, and that's the first moment that you and your team bond and click. Being with my sisters and dancing is just unlike any other feeling I've ever experienced.
Welcome back to the Raiders Draft Special on all the Raiders platforms. JT, along with Eric Allen, Vinny Bonsignore from the Review-Journal will join us next hour as we get you up to the draft, and the Raiders will be picking at number 7. As of now, rumors are flying in about teams wanting to move up to number 3 with Arizona. So welcome back, everybody, as we get to the cornerbacks and get going here. And this is your specialty. And listen, this is an important need for the Raiders.
Yeah.
And I've said on my mock draft, which we'll get to later, I just think it's important that the Raiders get out of here with the top cornerback, and that could be Christian Gonzalez. I like Devin Witherspoon. You'd be checking off a box wish the next team good luck, and fill a need.
You know what, JT? There's some organizations and some teams around the National Football League that are known for certain things. The Raiders organization has always been known for great cornerback play. You know, Mike Haynes, Lester Hayes, Charles, just on and on, just outstanding football players. And it's time to kind of get back to that. We need somebody who can take that ball away. That's the most important thing as far as being a cornerback in the National Football League. And I know sometimes when we talk about college cornerbacks and how they translate to the National Football League, we talk a lot about press coverage. We talk a lot about, their physicality at the line of scrimmage. Once you get to the National Football League, it takes you about 2 or 3 days to figure out that if the guy that you can press, these offenses are going to put him off the ball. It's going to be Hunter Renfrow in the slot. He's going to go in motion. So you're not going to have that ability to be able to just stand out there on the island on the outside and press. You're going to have to play inside. You're going to play outside. You're going to play from a stack formation where the receiver you're covering is standing 3 yards off the ball, and they have a receiver who is 6'3", 220 pounds at the point of a contact. Right? So, again, it's about versatility in this game. It's about being able to get to this next level in the first month of training camp, adapting. And the cornerbacks that adapt are the cornerbacks that are going to be successful in the National Football League.
Well, let's start with Witherspoon. I watched every one of his games. My wife went to Illinois, so I have to watch every game. Every game's DVR'd or I've watched it live, and he is a beast. What I love about Witherspoon is he can get behind the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
He can blitz, he can tackle. If you run a draw to a running back, he can hit the hole and tackle like a linebacker.
Look at you.
5'11 and a half, 181. But the fact is he runs a 4.2, a 4.42. He's fast, but he's very physical. He's like a Mighty Mike guy that can hit. His size is not ideal, so you'd be drafting a smaller corner, but battle-tested in a conference where you have to stop the run and stop some elite pass catchers from Ohio State and some of the schools that can throw up top.
Okay, so when we're talking about a corner who is 6 feet and under, the 5'10", 5'11" guy, that's where arm length comes into play, hand size comes into play, vertical, explosiveness, all those things come into play because that's when you're talking about a guy like Eric Allen, who's 5'10", 5'11", but you have extraordinary long arms and your hands are huge, right? And you're bench pressing 330 pounds in the incline. So there's not a receiver who I face who I couldn't, if I get my hands on them, you're locked down, right? The ability to be able to turn and go, the speed, the quickness. What I notice about Witherspoon, he has, and all these guys have good instincts, but his instincts and his ability to go from first gear to third gear and go from 5 yards off to in the backfield making a play, amazing. And you saw that time and time again, the instincts happening, the lateral movement, the ability to be able to track the football. And that's what separates him, I believe, with everyone else because his ability, his instincts are outstanding. His tackling is great. He understands edges, leverage, instincts are there, the ball skills. And the one other thing that I thought he displayed when I was watching is situational maturity. That's very important, JT, because you can't be in the fourth quarter and have a lead and do something knucklehead, right? You grab a guy, you're talking mess, you slam your helmet. You have to have maturity to be able to play our position because there's a lot of jaw-jacking back and forth, JT.
Sure.
You're a corner. You want to be up. So in the first part of the game, be up, be excited, spike the ball. But as the game progresses, you have to settle it down and be calm. And I think he displayed all those things as a watching him on field.
What I like about Witherspoon, for me, it's always been Witherspoon or Gonzalez and Jalen Carter. Those are the three best players, I think, on defense. What I like about Witherspoon is this organization for quite some time, throughout several regimes, are trying to slow down Andy Reid in Kansas City, and they haven't been able to do it. A random win here or there. Witherspoon reminds me of the type of player who can guard and keep an eye on Mahomes. So Mahomes takes off, he can leave and go there and blow up Mahomes.
You're right.
That's what I like about him. That's the one thing. Now, as we look at Gonzalez here, he reminds me same size, body type as Nnamdi. When Nnamdi came here, long arms, a guy who can do everything. Gonzalez reminds me of a guy that you can just bat a ball away, catch a ball. But I'll tell you the one thing, and this is a hot button for me and you, whoever it is at corner, and I think they're going to go corner, they better be able to catch the ball. We need guys who can turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And I believe that Gonzalez will be a little bit better than that. I think at the point of the height of the football, he'll be able to go up like Nnamdi and go get it. And Witherspoon's the type of guy that can force a fumble and hit. He's kind of like an extra linebacker.
Yeah,
a
does a
fourth
little bit of everything.
linebacker who's a really good cover guy.
Yep.
So I like the physicality of Witherspoon. And how long have you and I been talking about the Raiders got Max Crosby? How many other guys do they have in here that come out of the tunnel and say, he's just a bad dude, a guy who's going to tackle? Devin Witherspoon is that guy. He's not as tall as Gonzalez.
Right.
But Gonzalez overall, the pass defense, the interceptions, a little bit more. Gonzalez looks like a guy who can play corner in the first half and wide receiver in the second half. He's that fluid athlete. And tell us a little bit about that, EA, the difference between fluidity and a guy who's just a better tackler.
Well, and again, Gonzalez is a tremendous athlete. He's probably converted receiver. He has a great offensive skill set. He has a great at attacking the ball. He can catch, obviously. Once he gets his hands on the ball, he's fluid when he runs. He looks like, man, that guy should be playing slot receiver or something. The one thing when you get out west, sometimes the cornerbacks at the big schools are converted. They're not guys who wanted to play corner when they were younger. It's a different mindset when you're a converted guy rather than a guy, you know what, man, my favorite player was Charles Woodson or my favorite player, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to learn all the little intricate details to be able to play position. So when I turned on Gonzalez's film, I saw a lot of what I usually see with, Pac-12 type of cornerbacks. You know what, I'm tremendously fast. I'm not going to give it the deep ball, and I'm going to kind of bait you to throw these short routes, and I'm going to use my athleticism to break on the ball. So I didn't see a lot of backpedaling to keep square. I didn't see a lot of those little techniques that you need on this level when you can't use your hands. You have to use your leverage steps. And so that's going to be a process for him. And I'm not saying he can't do it, but I just think that Gonzalez, you're going to have to stick him on the outside and let him play outside corner for a while before he gets, in tune with those little details that I think are so critically important to being a versatile corner at our level, to where you can go from left to right to inside to cover who? The number one receiver.
All right, before I'm about to say what I'm about to say, all right, I'm going to throw out a disclaimer. I like both these guys.
Right.
I take them both at number 7, who's ever available, and you're good.
Right.
The problem is what's happened to the Raiders at this position over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I did the deep dive going back 23 years. If you look at Fabian Washington, Phillip Buchanan, DJ Hayden, Damon Arnett, okay, you look at this list, Trayvon Mullen, Garyon Connolly, the big one here. You want to talk about swing and misses.
Yeah.
Arnett in 2020, Mullen, who I thought was a good player, had some foot injuries that kind of played him off the team. And Garyon Connolly, who was a complete bust. These were first-round picks.
Garyon Connolly was first round?
Yeah, first-round pick. Okay, and then you go back and you look at other players that were with this team. DJ Hayden, for example. When you swing and miss on a corner, and then you see a corner like Nate Hobbs in the 5th round, you go, okay, I can get a corner in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. But I want to see the Raiders get a long-term shutdown corner. He doesn't have to be Charles Woodson, but he's got to have the ability to be someone at the level of Charles Woodson, a Pro Bowl. So I wouldn't go 7 unless you think that pick is going to turn out to be a perennial Pro Bowl.
Right. It has to be these two guys that we're talking about.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And again, I say that because 7 is a high pick.
It is for a corner. It is for a corner.
You need to show up, obviously, at all rookie.
Sauce Gardner.
Yes. I'm not saying you're going to be Sauce Gardner, because Sauce Gardner is the truth. He's a good ball player. But you need to be in year 2 or 3, like you're one of the top guys in a division, and you're battling and you're able to follow whoever the number 1 guy is on the Chiefs or the Chargers. You need to be able to follow that guy around, right? And so we look at Nate Hobbs and what a success he is, and you say, man, we can just find a guy in the 3rd or 4th round. Well, Nate Hobbs, we saw this year, much better inside than he was outside.
Sure.
And those are the things you try and get into. So the 7th guy, you need to be able to have that 7th guy go from outside, left to right, like Charles was doing, towards the end of his first year.
Or Jalen Ramsey.
Right. We would sit down in the meeting rooms, in the film rooms, JT, and we'd say, okay, we're playing Minnesota Vikings this week. EA's like, I'm raising my hand like, hey, that big tall dude, I'm not covering that Randy Moss guy. Charles, that's all you. So I'll go with Chris Carter all day. You got this guy. And so he would travel around. So similar to what I would do like from 89 to 93 or 4. You know, Michael Irvin, I got him all day. Jerry Rice, I got you all day. Isaac Bruce, I got you all day. You know, so those are things that you're looking for at a number 7 pick.
Keep an eye on Joey Porter Jr.
Yes,
His dad played in the league.
Down.
Let me tell you about him.
Woo.
He's on the Raiders' radar if they trade back.
Yes.
If the Raiders get off of 7 and move back,
right, I
with
agree.
The Commanders or maybe the Titans or someone, there's a player that can drop to them.
That dude can press you to no
so
tomorrow.
I think he's an option if they move back.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on him. But the 2 corners, I think they're going to take him. I've been saying, and we'll get to it a little bit later, I like Witherspoon just a little bit more than Gonzalez.
Me too.
But either one I'd be fine with, and they'd be the shutdown corner here. When we come back, we're going to get into a reset here at the top of the hour, what the Raiders need to do, what could happen on the offensive side if it gets tricky early. But it seems like we're all on the same page that the Raiders will go defense as we continue with our draft special.
You're listening to Upon Further Review. I'm your host, Eddie Pascal.
Good morning, Raider Nation.
Welcome to Raiders Roundtable. JT along with Q Myers.
He dissects the play quickly and makes the move to the football.
Thanks to Coach McDaniels donating some gear for us for our flag football team. We do have girls flag football as a varsity sport in Las Vegas, and we play in the wintertime, so it was nice enough to get us some warm gear so that they can stay warm in the winter.
They let us in, and we got to walk around and look at the indoor facility and all the fields. After that, they took us on a tour and showed us the locker room and the weight room and the recovery room, and it was really cool.
This was an important thing for me to have an opportunity to do. If you don't know, I was the son of a high school football coach. You know, we didn't have a ton of resources, but we had a lot of people that helped us along the way and were able to, assist us in being able to, whether it was in improving our equipment or facilities or just people, willing to give their time and their resources to help us kind of grow and improve as student athletes, and to be able to give back not only to the game of football, but also our community here was important to me. Super excited that I could help in any way that I can. I will continue to try to do that, and welcome. Hope you guys have a great time here today, obviously, and best of luck on your seasons coming up like ours is. So, welcome.
It's a great opportunity for those of us who, are now part of the National Football League. We also have another obligation to help those that aspire to do these kind of things. So it's a good feeling when you can look at the faces of those young kids and know that, you're giving them an opportunity to have some things that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have. And, as much as we can do that, that's better for the game. It's better for our community, and we'll continue to try to do that.
There we go. Everyone on 3, 1, 2, 3.
Having Coach McDaniel show up was big for the kids. It shows that the top guy from the organization is all about giving back to the community, which is a big thing for the Raiders organization, for the high schools that he affected. It's just a great overall experience to see the connection in football between professional and high school.
We were also happy to see him, the girls included. They were asking on the car right over here if they were going to get to see him, so they weren't 100% sure. And when they did, you could see their eyes lit up, and just the way he talked about how much he loved high school football, I know really brought it home for them. And I think that they want to go out and play right now, but they got to wait till winter.
I think it was really special. He just seemed very kind and like he really cared, and it was nice having him help us out.
It feels great, amazing. We don't really get too much of attention at Western High School, but getting it from Raiders, it's amazing.
Welcome back to the Raiders Draft Special from Raiders HQ. I'm JT, along with the great Eric Allen. Vinny Bonsignor from the Review Journal will join us in a little bit, and we got about another hour left to go. We'll get to our mock draft coming up here in a few moments. If you're joining us late, recapping, there are a lot of rumors running around out there now. We'll get you a couple more before we get out of here at the top of the hour. Mike Florio reporting that Arizona at number 3 could be looking to trade out of that with the Titans of Tennessee potentially. Houston's got the 2nd and 12th pick. Could they be packaging something to get a quarterback or move out of the number 2? And most importantly, what will the Silver and Black do here at number 7? Cornerback potentially. Jalen Carter, what happens if the beast from Georgia, the defensive tackle, drops all the way to them? And then the opportunity to get an offensive tackle if the Raiders want to trade back. And before we get to what we think is going to happen with our picks, to update everybody again and reset here at the top of the hour, I think the quarterback rumors are real with the Raiders. I think Dave Ziegler kicked the tires with Chicago initially. The price was too rich. So you got an idea that Dave Ziegler at least was interested in the quarterback. They're interested. They got Jimmy Garoppolo. Hell of a player. A guy who wins. He's very good in the red zone. Now what are the Raiders going to do now? Are they going to just completely pass, or are they going to take some phone calls here? Your team saying, hey, maybe come up to 3. You could get your quarterback. Come up to 3. Let's talk about it, or move back and build the draft through the defense.
That's what this process, and as you know, you've been in it so long, you have to field those phone calls. If there's quarterbacks out there that you think can help your organization at the end of this year and going into next year, you have to take that chance on a quarterback. And this league is built on being able to have a quarterback who can get you to this next level, win football games for you, be in 2-minute situations, drive the ball down the field, either score a touchdown or put your team into field goal situations. If you believe a quarterback in this year's draft is like that, you have to find a way to try and get him, JT, and that's really important for this team. If not, you look at your board and you go defense. For us, it's about defensive football.
The problem that's happened around here lately, and not with this regime, because last year Dave Ziegler took Dylan Parham in the 3rd round. That was his first pick because Devontae cost a 1 and a 2, and I'm fine with that. They get the best wide receiver in football. The best wide receiver is in this building in Devontae Adams. Now Dave has an opportunity at number 7 to make his name as a young GM in this league. In the last couple of years, the picks that hurt the Raiders the most, Henry Ruggs, we obviously know the incident and what happened there. Cleveland Ferrell at number 4 was a reach. Damon Arnett was a bust, and that was a reach for cornerback overall there. And then you look at Jonathan Abram, who's almost playing himself out of the league and got bounced around. That was a first-round pick. But there was some good picks. Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow, the great Max Crosby. So some of the former GMs from Reggie McKenzie before Mike Mayock had some good players that came in here. And he has, we both know this. We know these gentlemen who have the job now and who had it before. Their intentions are strong.
Yes.
The scouts work the entire offseason to find the best players.
Wait, let me stop.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me stop you right there. That's really what's, I think, the difference between the previous staffs and maybe this staff is the accountability of the scouts. The scouts are so important, like you said, JT. I think they really take that into account. I'm not sure about what happened in the past, but I know they really rely on these scouts to do their job.
Well, what I know about Dave Ziegler, getting to know him, is he's been groomed under the Belichick tree and what he did in Denver for this moment tonight. Yeah. He's calm, he's cool, he's collective, he's not going to panic. He has his board set up, and if something changes, he's the type of guy that can quickly make a move and at a low heart rate. You know what I'm saying? A guy that's not going to panic and go crazy and ask the owner, what do the owner think? He knows what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And he works, and he's great friends with Josh McDaniels. They were college teammates. But again, I'm sitting here, we're about an hour and a half away from the pick, or 2 hours. I don't know what the Raiders are going to do, and I think it's changing on the fly here. So let's get into what we believe could happen here with our mock drafts as we begin. And I am going to let you go first, okay? Because we were born 12 hours apart.
That's right.
Literally. So you can have the first pick. I'm going to let you do it. So Eric Allen is on the clock, and you get a chance to go first. Who do you have with the first pick in the NFL draft?
I'm going to turn my ticket really fast. Bryce Young, obviously the quarterback from Alabama. I've seen this young man, Southern California, in high school and passing league tournaments. He's always been the calmest guy on the football field. So many questions about the young man's size and his stature or whatever, but he's always won football games. He's always done the right thing. He's come from an amazing family, loves football, loves the game. has really transformed every program, high school and college, that he's been at. He's been the best player on the football field, no matter what size. The high school he went to had amazing football players, guys going all over the place, but he was the guy. And in college at Alabama, he was the guy. He was able to really lift that passing game to another level, really good outside the pocket. I'm not sure how long he's going to be able to play in this league because of his size, but when he's playing, I'm pretty sure he's going to give him all he has.
All right, I'm going to go here at number 2, and I mocked this out a couple of days ago, and Daniel Jeremiah, who has the biggest mock, agrees with me. I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud there for the Texans because I think it's a massive need, but if there's ever a move for a trade, it's right here because I think that the agent's going to get involved. The same agent that Stroud has, was Deshaun Watson's agent, and I think there's some bad blood. Maybe not. Nick Caserio's going to have to make up his mind. Right. I think it's responsible for the Texans to get the quarterback. A lot of people thought Stroud was better than Young. He was great in his last game on tape. So I don't have a good feeling about this, but I'm going to go with the safe pick of C.J. Stroud. I think he's the second best quarterback. It's the right thing for the Texans to do, but I would not be shocked if they tried to trade back.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And if you need a quarterback, get a quarterback. So number 3 is Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, they don't need a quarterback. They need someone to kind of replace defensively J.J. Watt, who's left there, and I'm going to go. And people talk about safe pick. I think he's versatile. I like him. The film last year didn't pop like it did in 21. Will Anderson Jr. is my guy. I think he's someone who can play for you for 8 or 9 years and give you production, give you some splash plays, but I don't think he has the ceiling maybe that we talked about Tyree Wilson. He doesn't have the ceiling there, but there's not going to be this tremendous floor either. So I'm going to go, my third pick, I'm going to go with Will Anderson Jr.
Yeah, and if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I would say Arizona trades out of that pick. This is the moment in the draft where Arizona, the phone is ringing. I mean, I don't know how that works, but there's like 9 GMs calling, and they got all those lines going. Right. So that's a good pick here, Arizona. He's mocked to go there. Yep. At number 4, when it comes to number 4 here, as we take a look at Indianapolis, this is also the key quarterback moment in the draft. I think they have their eye on Anthony Richardson. I really do. I'm going to go Anthony Richardson, who the Raiders might want, and the Raiders could be on the phone to get up to number 3 to get him. So let's get that out of the way. I like Richardson more than Levis because of the upside. This is the closest player that I've seen since Mahomes when it comes to athletic ability, more than Lamar Jackson. Let me repeat, Lamar Jackson won the Heisman Trophy, and he's been an MVP. But I think when you look at the overall play of Anthony Richardson, his ceiling could get him to Mahomes. But he'd have to sit for a year. He'd have to develop, and I think that Indianapolis could do that with him. A lot of people disagree and say Will Levis might be the better fit there, but I had to choose between Levis and Richardson, and I think if you're trying to get the next Lamar Jackson and the next Patrick Mahomes, you get this kid.
Wow, you think so, huh?
I'm not a big fan of his completion percentage, but I'm a fan of his ceiling. I'm a fan of saying, look, instead if I'm not going to be able to get him at 7 or 9 or 12, then I got to go up and get him. And I think this is the guy that the phone's going to be ringing, and Indianapolis is going to say, no, I'm going to take him here. What do you got at number 5?
Oh, at number 5, again, number 5, what does Pete want to do? Pete wants to play great defense.
Yeah, he does.
He knows that if you play great defense, it's going to get you to the big game. I'm going to go Jalen Carter up there in Seattle with Pete Carroll, someone to kind of anchor the middle of the football field, be able to disrupt from the inside. They can run that cover 4 or whatever want to do in that situation. They just got Bobby Wagner back, so you have someone in front of Bobby, so Bobby's going to run sideline to sideline, not have to worry about somebody attacking him through the middle. That'd be an outstanding combination in the middle of the football field. You have Jalen Carter, you have Bobby Wagner, and you have your outstanding safety.
Before we get to number 6, I just want to tell a quick story. As we can on radio, we tell stories about Pete Carroll. I met Pete Carroll when he was working with Jim Brown in the inner cities of L.A. with American trying to stop gang violence. Yeah. And Pete would go into the roughest neighborhoods to try to change lives. Right. And he did that at USC with some players that he was able to get in there. Yep. And he did it up in Seattle. Right. He's a life changer.
He is.
And that's a great point by you. If Jalen Carter doesn't go to the Raiders, because I think he'd be a good fit here, he's a bigger need for the Raiders than he is for Seattle. Right. I think that Pete Carroll can take this young man with all the background noise, park him in the Pacific Northwest, and save his career and get him to that level. Let's go with Detroit. And this is where it hurts me because I want Weatherspoon to be available at 7, but I don't think he is. I think Detroit is also looking for a corner. I think Detroit is right there. Dan Campbell. Detroit lost a couple of players, one on the offensive side for that gambling probe. Different topic for a different day. But I think Detroit is going to go with Devin Witherspoon, my pick for the Raiders, but I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to wait for him there. So I'm going to go Lions, Witherspoon, the cornerback out of Illinois. And, you know, they've missed on a couple of corners in Detroit. Like the Raiders have missed on a number of corners here. So Detroit's thinking the same thing the Raiders are. We got to get a guy who's proven and we know is going to be a lockdown player.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I totally agree with you. I think Detroit, you're thinking defensive mindset. Thought last year's pick turned out to be fantastic. He did an outstanding job. It's great. On the line of scrimmage, Hutchinson. And I do believe Devin Witherspoon is their kind of player. You know, he can do a little bit of everything. And hopefully they don't see it the way we see it, JT, and he's still on the board. But, yeah, I agree with you.
All right, let's get to our pick at number 7 here. I think we were both thinking corner.
Yeah.
And that's not because you were one of the all-time great corners. I mean, if you didn't pick a corner this year with this draft preview show, you never were going to do it.
That's right.
So I knew you were picking the 2 here. So let's go with who we believe is the obvious pick there at corner.
Yeah, I go to Gonzalez also. Yeah, I think he's the kind of player you can sit on the outside because we have so many. And that's one thing I didn't mention earlier is we have guys who can play inside. We have guys who are willing and want to play inside. Hall, you know, and so there's going to be competition all over. But to have a corner at number 7, you can say, hey, you're going to start at right corner or you're going to start at left corner. Man, for a defense, for a coordinator to be able to build your schemes around, hey, I know Mac's going to be on this side. I have this corner on this side, and I'm going to have some great battles in camp to see who's going to be, you know, Hobbs inside, Hall inside, you know, who's going to be outside. So, again, I'm going to go with Christian Gonzalez.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I want to see Hobbs develop into a guy who just can't play inside. I want to see him on the outside.
Yeah.
Then we have 2 starters. Hobbs is starting on one side and Gonzalez on the other, or you're moving Hobbs inside. It'd be a good problem for the Raiders to have. So we both have Gonzalez going number 7 or Witherspoon. And keep an eye on Jalen Carter because that guy could come in here and change the defense overnight.
Yes.
Overnight, the Raiders would have a beast at defensive tackle that can change this organization from the inside of that defensive line for years to come. Right. When we come back, we're going to have Vinny Bonsignore coming up in a little bit. Also go around the league. Here's some of those other rumors. As you're looking at Kansas City, a little overcast. Not in Vegas, baby. No. Not in Vegas, baby. Home of the draft last year.
Every audition is super special, and that's the first moment that you and your team bond and click. Being with my sisters and dancing is just unlike any other feeling I've ever experienced.
Hi, I'm Charles Woodson. This is my draft story.
It's selection day in the National Football League. It's intercepted by Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson took it away, and there he goes down the sideline. He's got to go. Polish off the Heisman. It's blast-off time for the class of 1998.
Like all of us as young players, man, we dream about going to the draft, dream about getting drafted. And of course, you know, you want to get drafted high.
We are eagerly anticipating the start of what may go down in history when we look back 10 years from now as the high watermark draft of the entire decade of the 90s.
You know, going up into the draft, you know, there was talks about me going forward overall to the Raiders. But then there was all of a sudden there was some chatter about somebody moving up into the 4th pick.
You know, always interesting when the Raiders are on the clock with it. We understand the pick is coming right in. They got to go with Woodson. I mean, now all of a sudden corner, which is such a strength position for them for years and years and years.
Then there was a little bit of anxiety, if you will, about whether or not I was going to get picked 4th or not.
Let's go up to the podium and Commissioner Paul Tagliabue. With the 4th pick in the draft.
And then the time came and the Raiders actually made the call and said, Charles, we're taking you at number 4.
The Oakland Raiders have selected defensive back, University of Michigan, Charles Woodson.
Man, I had, my family, man, my mom, my brother, my sister, nephew, dad. Of course, there was, hugs, going around just like you see, every year. Big time hugs and congratulations and tears of joy.
It's the only pick that I think the Raiders could have made.
That moment right there, knowing that I had made it and gotten my opportunity to play in the NFL was an incredible moment, man, and one that I'll never forget.
The Las Vegas Raiders and Allegiant Stadium have announced plans to elevate and expand its premium suite offerings, introducing 100-level club suites for the 2023 season. Completion for the expansion project is expected for early fall ahead of the start of the Raiders' regular season, as well as marquee events and concerts, including Beyonce, Ed Sheeran, and Pink. For more details, visit Raiders.com/club suites or call 702-463-5132.
It is draft season, and with that, it's our pleasure now to welcome you to the Raiders NFL Draft Podcast.
This is a very exciting time. We get a chance to join the nation, Raider Nation, talk a little bit about the draft.
The Raiders very well positioned in terms of draft resources, draft capital.
This will be a fascinating watch as we get closer to the draft and kind of see how the Raiders put the pieces of the puzzle together.
We've got a lot to cover here over the next 8 weeks, and so excited to be here on this Raiders NFL Draft Podcast.
Welcome back to the Raiders Draft Special from Raiders HQ. JT along with Eric Allen and Vinny Bonsignore kind enough to join us from Vegas Nation, Raider Nation Radio, and the Review Journal. And Vinny, you're downstairs doing your job. You're coming up here to help us. What is on your mind? What jumps out at you as we're about 2 hours away from the Raiders pick?
Probably the fact that we're here today and we're, an hour away from, if that, from the draft starting, and I still don't have a clear sense of where the Raiders might go at number 7. I think I have a outline of what could happen, but nothing definitive right now, and that's to the credit of this front office and Dave Ziegler and everybody else involved by keeping a tight lid on where they may go, and they may go in a number of different directions depending on who's there, what offers they may get to trade down, possibility of trading up. So a lot is still on the table.
And I want to start by saying a lot of the picks of the past draft since the Raiders came to Vegas, there's been some good players there, but mostly a lot of swings and misses for top players. And I think they have to clean that up. They deconstructed the roster. They brought in Devontae for a first and second. They went out and got Jimmy Garoppolo. So do you like the way they set themselves up coming into the draft so they could have an exceptional draft and hit a lot of home runs?
Yeah, I think Jimmy Garoppolo stabilizes the position, so you don't have to be desperate about that position, even though it is the most important position on the field. No disrespect to the cornerbacks.
It's all right,
Eric. But they don't have to be desperate in terms of the quarterback right now. It's incumbent on them at some point, whether it's in this draft or next year, to identify their quarterback of the future, but they don't necessarily have to do that this year. So they have a little bit of flexibility at number 7. That said, they have a lot of needs as well. And defensively, they've got a lot of needs. It's a good draft for defense. But there's still a need on the offensive line. And there's some highly regarded offensive linemen. So if they stay at number 7, and let's say their preferred top choice defensive player, let's just say Devin Witherspoon for argument's sake, isn't there, and they don't, and there's a little bit of a gap between the next phase of defensive players and those offensive linemen, don't be surprised if they go offensive linemen and the best player available on their board. And here's the thing. I think in the past, the Raiders have been guilty of valuing need a little bit more than the higher rated player. And I think it's got them in trouble. So I think if you played this game, draft the highest player available. If it's even, then you go with the need. The need breaks the tie. But if it's not even, and there really is a gap between, let's say, Peter Skoronski or Paris Johnson, and in their eyes, a Christian Gonzalez or a Joey Porter or whoever that defensive player is there, draft the best player available.
Yeah, talent always wins.
Yeah.
We talked to Dave earlier this week, and that's one question specifically I asked him. When you're in that process, if you have talent over scheme, where do you go? And it took him about a half a second. Talent, because we can fit him in anywhere, right? But what at 7? What if you have that quarterback who's there at 7, and you have that cornerback who's there that you think is a top guy on the board? If you're the Raiders, where do you go?
Well, I think in the macro sense, the Raiders still need. I think quarterback is still their biggest need for the long range.
Yep.
So, and the only way I swing on this is if the guy that's there is the guy that I truly believe is somebody that's going to hoist a Vince Lombardi trophy, capable of being able to do that. And if that quarterback in your eyes is there, you draft him. And I think you get that solidified because this draft isn't just about this year. I know that fans and in the media, everybody's looking at 2023, and rightfully so, but it's not just about 2023. It's about 2024, 25, 26, 27, and so on and so forth. And if you can get that generational quarterback, if that's the guy you believe is there, then take him and take care of everything else. After that, look, you still have 11 picks.
Yeah.
So you could go defense predominantly the rest of those 11 picks, still feel good about your quarterback of the future, and still feel good about walking away from this weekend, not just tonight, but this weekend, with a lot of holes filled on your defense.
Vinny Bonsignore joins us from the Review Journal. All right, there's another thing I want to throw at you, a couple of curveballs here. What happens if one of these quarterbacks starts dropping? So that would be C.J. Stroud. Because the agent situation jumps out at me. Same agent as Deshaun Watson. They might just say, we don't want to deal with this guy. We're going to pass on him. And then at Arizona at 3, team comes up there, they want Richardson. And then at 4, Indy says, we love Levis. Now all of a sudden Seattle says, we got Geno. Detroit goes, we got Goff. And the Raiders are sitting there with C.J. Stroud. I would jump all over that. And I'm a defense guy. I want to go all defense, but not in that case. That would be my scenario to say, get Stroud, park him. He's the franchise quarterback. We got the guy. And then you got plenty of picks to build the defense.
Absolutely. But what if that isn't their guy? Because we don't know.
Yeah.
But that still could work in their favor because if C.J. Stroud isn't the Raiders guy, he's somebody's
guy.
Right? And somebody's guy. And when you start getting into that 7 range, you got to figure there's somebody, maybe it's the Houston Texans, it'll circle back to them, who are sitting there at number 12. Maybe they're like, we passed on them at number 2 and got Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson, whatever defensive player they go. We could still get C.J. Stroud here. That might be the time to trade up to 7 with the Raiders. The Raiders pick up maybe an extra second-round pick if he's not their guy, but it still works in their favor because there's value to somebody there. And the Raiders might be able to secure some more assets by trading down, still getting a good defensive player or maybe the offensive lineman and picking up some extra picks.
What about a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round? Part of that for me says, all right, you're definitely parking a project. Not only are you not taking the defensive player, which you need another corner, another defensive tackle, you're parking a quarterback that no one else wanted until the 3rd round. But we saw Joe Montana, Russell Wilson. We saw some pretty good players go in the 3rd round over the decades here. What do you think about that? Parking that quarterback somewhere along the way. Is that a hot button for Josh McDaniels?
I think so. And you look at their past history in their previous stop. We're not going to say where because fans get mad at that, and I get that. They've drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. They've drafted quarterbacks even when they did have Tom Brady and developed him and got something of value for them in a trade, or maybe they helped them at some point. So I could definitely see that. Or if you do trade down, let's say with Houston or Philadelphia, it seems like they're knocking on a lot of doors right now to try to move up. You pick up an extra 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick, whatever you get in return. Now you use some of those assets to move back up into the 1st round. And there's Hendon Hooker or somebody like that you could still now get your quarterback late in the 1st round and still have him here for 5 years. So there's a lot of different ways that this can go.
Yeah, development is so important at this level. We talked about that pretty much all day today, which is critical in this whole process when they're doing their job, and the coaches have to get them and do their job, develop these guys to be
exactly.
Is there anyone that you can look at on the sheet of guys and say, that's a Raider guy?
Yeah, I think Devin Witherspoon is a Raider guy.
Yeah.
I think Joey Porter Jr. is a Raider-type guy.
Yeah.
And the intriguing thing to me with Joey Porter, he might not be the best of the cornerbacks right now, but there's definitely a scenario where 2 years down the line, he was the best cornerback in this draft. There's some things to work out, but I think he's got the pedigree, the wherewithal, the talent, the physicality to be able to fix whatever isn't making him the top-rated cornerback in this draft now, and for him to be the best cornerback down the road. But I think Witherspoon, when you put on the tape and see him flying around the field, Josh McDaniels has talked about guys that could get their hands on the ball in the secondary, and he definitely does that. Has a knack for creating turnovers and being in the right place. Somebody that I think could step in day one, and then you put him alongside Nate Hobbs, who I still feel has a bright future. They played together at Illinois. By the way, shout out to Lovie Smith, because with Nate, Witherspoon. There's two other
safeties.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Lovie Smith recruited all these
Yes,
guys. He
he
didn't
did.
stick around because other great opportunities came his way.
Yeah.
But he knew what he and the great thing about it is none of these guys were highly ranked.
I know. And that goes back to development.
Yeah.
They did an incredible job at Illinois' defensive backfield coach. And,
Right.
Developing these players. They do an outstanding job. First, I think they probably looked at the instincts of these players, and those things grew, those positives. But just being able to sit down, look at film, break it down. So when you're getting a guy from Illinois, he's going to be a little more mature. We talked about that too. The maturity is so important at defensive back, particularly at cornerback, because it's such a confrontational position.
Yeah.
Right. So these receivers are jacking, they're talking smack. It's up to you to kind of hold that, your fire and kind of raise it up when it needs to, and then raise it down when you don't. So it's really important. These guys have a lot.
And not only that, but nothing against the 4- and 5-star guys.
Right.
But I don't think you have any entitlement with the guys that came up the hard way, like the Nate Hobbses, like Witherspoon, that had to fight their
Had to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Every offseason, it's like, what do you have to work on?
Right.
Oh, 5-star. I'm not. What do you mean? What I'm working on? I'm working on
I'm
my
here.
NIL deal.
Right.
Yeah.
So they've already been there, done that, and for them, the next step to the NFL is just going to continue that fight.
Yes.
Vinny Bonsignore joins us. So a couple more players I want to get to that could be there. First off, Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter. I think these two players can be monumental building blocks for the defense. The defense has to get vastly better. So let's start off with the vetting process that the league is going through with Jalen Carter, because everybody's assuming Pete Carroll. We just talked about Pete, who's molded men's. Your years in L.A., you've seen him do it at USC. I think that's a good fit for him. He didn't go number 1 or 2, but he dropped to 5. If he's not there at 5 and he goes past, I think Dave Ziegler probably did a really good job vetting him at the Combine, the Pro Day, and having him here. Tell me about what you heard, just the process in general with this kid.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that process, and we talked to Dave Ziegler about this last week, and he said he's very comfortable with where the process led them, and that's the key to it all. Where did the process lead them? And I think that they went in with an open mind, one way or another. Wherever this process takes us, we're going to be okay with whatever that decision is, and okay with executing whatever that decision mandates, whether it's to say, no, he's not coming here, off the board, or if that decision took them to a place where we believe that not only in the talent, the second chance, the ability that he has to take advantage of that second chance and prove everybody wrong and not be a blemish, forget on the field, like off the field, and something that's going to potentially blow up in a franchise's face. If that process took them to that decision, I don't think they would blink an eye in picking him at number 7.
Yeah, that's important too.
It is.
And I think the fan base and the NFL as a whole need to understand those other things that happen wasn't the Raiders front office.
Right. True.
This is new.
Totally.
So if we give this guy an opportunity, a second chance, that's us. That's our process and how we went through it. Don't blame us for things that happened in the past that we had nothing to do with. So I think that's important.
But we'd all agree, maybe not, that the biggest need on this team is a dominant defensive tackle. Some would say a middle linebacker that can go sideline to sideline. This doesn't seem to be the draft to go get him. Maybe you get a project later on. Corner is a need. I just believe, going back to Darrell Russell, who I always mention, went to 2 Pro Bowls. You go to the history of the Raiders and what they did.
Chester McLaughlin.
Right. Yeah. All those players that had an impact, again, we haven't had that in a long, long time, and I think this just checks the box, or it's just pass him along. He's had some problems. We don't want to deal with him in Las Vegas.
Right, and if that's where their process led them, it would be it's frustrating because I've mentioned this, and I know that people feel this way as well. That is their biggest need when you really think about it. I know cornerback is definitely a big need, and it would be great for them to be able to solidify that. But it's been years since they've had a force in the interior of the defense. And somebody you can make the argument on film that Jalen Carter is the one defensive player that can almost single-handedly change the complexion of this Raiders defense, of this draft class.
Yeah.
Because you put him inside of a Max Crosby and a Chandler Jones, that defensive line all of a sudden has a chance to wreak real havoc. Excuse me. But it would be frustrating if the process took them away from him because they're like, man, that's a generational talent, but we just don't feel good about drafting him.
And we've all seen great defenses, and I was on one of the best defenses ever. Right. And, obviously you talk about Reggie White.
Yeah.
But Jerome Brown,
what a player,
in the middle of the football field was the anchor.
Right.
And that's why we were so good. When I came here or to Oakland, Darrell Russell was in the middle of the football field.
Right.
He allowed Greg Beaker to go sideline to sideline and make plays. Jerome Brown allowed Byron Evans to go sideline to sideline and make plays.
Seth Joyner.
You couldn't double all the time Reggie when Jerome was in the middle. You couldn't Lance Johnstone wasn't double when D. Russ was in the middle of the football field. So, again, you can have these outside pieces, corner, edge, linebacker, but if you don't have that guy in the middle of the football field who commands respect, who dominates, your defense will always kind of offensively, we can run this way. We can chip you. We can do this with the tight end, and then he can release after. When you have the defensive tackle, it's hard to do those things.
It makes the linebackers' job. So all of a sudden, okay linebackers can become really good because their job becomes so much. The path to the running back is wide open now because somebody's taken up a couple of blockers, eating up space, and creating lanes to go fill. So it changes the complexion of the defense.
Vinny, one more on the clues that we had from the offseason. They added a lot of guys in the secondary. I love what they did on offense. Jacoby Myers. I love what they've done with Sims and Dorsett on the outside. I think they've done a really good job, and Josh Jacobs is franchise tag. But what clue do you see when they don't spend money on the offensive line in free agency? And McGlinchey I thought was too expensive from the Niners. But why are they trying to fix this via the draft with a young player who's never played in an NFL game instead of going out in free agency or taking a player who's cut from another team because there's competition and getting more of a veteran presence to clean up this O-line?
Yeah, I think that last year taught them that it wasn't a great offensive line, but it wasn't the weakness that everybody kind of assumed that it was going to be. They did have the NFL's leading rusher. The offensive line played a role in that. Jakob Johnson did as well. Excuse me. But then they also, I think they gave up the 9th fewest sacks in the NFL. It wasn't, or somewhere around there, it wasn't the catastrophe that a lot of people thought it was going to be. They worked at it. They tinkered with it. Much to a lot of people's chagrin, they went into the season for about a month still trying to figure it out. And they eventually developed a pretty good crew. They know that the offensive line still needs to get better, but I think that's another case where a guy like Jermaine Illuminar, came in and played well. Their rookie played well, Dylan Parham. They got enough good play from their center. The right guard, Alex Bars, that's probably an area where you really do need to upgrade. But in a perfect world, you add more talent to that group. But I think they feel like they can get by another year, just kind of cobbling it together, scheming it up, helping them a little bit with the fullback and an extra tight end from time to time. Think about how many times they brought in Thayer Munford as that
tight end.
Right? That extra blocker. So they figured it out. And I think that they feel like, okay, worst case scenario, we could figure it out again for another year. But I still wouldn't be surprised if you see a Peter Skoronski or a Paris Johnson being selected either at 7 or in a trade down situation.
Yeah, one more on this. We got a few more minutes left with Vinny Bonsignor, who joins us from Vegas Nation. This is the fascinating part of what our whole 2 hours have been about. Move up, stay, or move back. I think by moving back, you're sending a message that we're here to get a lot of value. Okay, I think by moving up or staying there, you're looking for a star. I think this organization needs a star on defense. I'll put my name on it, and we'll go around, and I'll start first and go to Vinny. What's your perfect scenario? Mine would be 2 picks in the first round. You get Gonzalez or Witherspoon, and then on the back end, you get Clancy. You get a player that you can put in on 28, 29, 27 and go, we got out of Thursday night primetime. The whole country saw we got 2 defenders. And then the pundits around the world are saying, with Max Crosby, Chandler Jones, what they have, that's not a bad defense, and the Raiders are better. What's a perfect scenario for you tonight?
Man, for tonight, I think Devin Witherspoon would be a great perfect situation, depending on if, for me anyway, if a C.J. Stroud is available, or if they're able to parlay Stroud's availability into some extra picks. Maybe even be able to use those to trade back into the first round. So that would be a perfect scenario for me. I like Witherspoon, and follow it up with getting my guy Jack Campbell from Iowa tomorrow.
There you go.
Pick number 38, the linebacker from Iowa. And
someone said a linebacker. Vinny, we got to give you a shirt or an award or a mug. You said linebacker.
Yeah,
We've gone an hour and a half without saying linebacker.
He's that. Keep an eye on Jack Campbell.
Yeah.
Perfect scenario for you, EA.
Again, defensively, I think having a defensive impact player, I would love Carter.
Yeah.
And I just think he would just help this defense so much. And then come back later in those, 3 picks and maybe get a quarterback that you can understand him, teach him the system, be a project kind of guy, and they do a great job with quarterbacks, get them to learn their system. So you get a quarterback in that 3, find a way to get a cornerback who you can say he's a long corner and he can really translate to our defense. We don't have to worry about him playing inside, but he's going to be, bam, your outside guy. I think those are the kind of things that I really hope for this football team.
Vinny, tell us what you're doing the rest of the night, your schedule, your column coming out, what you'll be tweeting during the draft, and how everyone can find you.
Yeah, I probably have about 8 stories written right now, little short stories on who they may pick.
Okay.
That's how crazy this is. I've picked number 7. Actually 12, I'd say. 12 players that I still could possibly see them taking at number 7 or trade up or trade down for. So it's just going to be keeping an eye on what the Raiders do, and I don't think this is going to be a situation where Raider fans are scratching their head or why did they just do that. I think it's going to make sense, and I think it's going to set the tone for what could be a great weekend for the Raiders. And back to the cornerbacks, this is a deep class for cornerbacks. So even if they don't get one at 7 and maybe they go offensive lineman or defensive lineman, there's so much depth at that position. That could be a tell that, hey, there's still really good value there in the 2nd and 3rd rounds for cornerbacks that can step in and play right away.
See, me and him got to take phone calls. You sit on that cushion set with the makeup on over there. You're all over there. They don't take phone calls on that set. We got to deal with this over the next couple
Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Vinny.
All right,
Appreciate
thank you guys.
being here.
Way to go, baby.
All right, when we come back, more of our wrap-up of what we expect to see. We're taking a look at Kansas City, and we're excited about what's going to happen next. From HQ, this is the Draft Special.
Thayer Munford Jr., this is my draft story. I was getting like third, fourth round grades, but I was looking for like the beginning of the 3rd day. But I dropped all the way down to the 7th round, and I was like, like, what's going on? Like, did I do something wrong? Was I not good enough? It was all these emotions going through my head. I was like, man, do I have to become a free agent? Which is not the worst thing in the world, of course. It could have been a lot worse. I just had to keep my head down, put faith in God, of course, and just trust in Him and trust that someone's going to pick me up. And I told myself, my mom, my fiance, and even God Himself that they're going to get everything and anything that they got from me.
Thayer, how you doing? This is Coach Martinez. How are you? I'm doing good, buddy. We are on the clock here in round 7 at 2:38, and we are going to make you a Las Vegas Raider. Congratulations. I can tell you have some people there. And I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes and just go through some logistics with you. But I'm going to give you the phone to General Manager Dave Ziegler so he can welcome you to the Raiders. And again, congratulations. Excited to start working with you. And then I'll be in touch here in a little bit, okay?
When I got the call from the Raiders, of course, I was like, man, I still remember this so real moment that I was just bawling out, crying, and just whole bunch of emotions going through my head. I was like, man, I actually got drafted. I'm in the 1% of the 1%.
Thayer, what's up, buddy? I know it's been a long couple days, but we're excited that, it ended up the opportunity where we can get you here, and, you're going to have an opportunity to compete, and whatever you make of it is what you make of it, man. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter ultimately where you go. It's what you make of it, and you're going to have every opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity here and, do your thing.
hearing that, it's like, dang, like, this is true. Like, I'm in the 1% right now. Then after I got done talking to Dave and Josh, of course, and got done talking to Karn, I just broke down crying. I just prayed, and I was like, man, thank you, God, for everything that you've been doing for me. And thank you for this opportunity. So now where I'm at right now, after my first year, is a whirlwind.
With the 238th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Thayer Munford, offensive tackle, Ohio State.
When I watched that announcement, I just saw a kid up there just saying, like, for like the 200-something pick. I was like, dang, that's a lot of picks. The Las Vegas Raiders select Thayer Munford Jr., and I just fell down on the couch. I think I really broke the couch, but at the time I was like, I don't care. I'm happy. I just want to enjoy this time with my family and my fiance, and it was good.
Welcome back to our live draft coverage. We're inside Raiders HQ along with Eric Allen. I'm JT. We just had Vinny Bonsignore, Lincoln Kennedy earlier as we get set to wrap this up. We want to thank our whole team behind the scenes here at Silver and Black Productions, Lotus Broadcasting. Everybody did a masterful job pulling this off. A lot of work behind the scenes. We appreciate everybody. So as we look at what's happening, I want to spend a little bit more time on the tight end position. Darrell Waller is gone. Everybody praying for Foster Moreau and his situation that he's going through now. I look at Austin Hooper and O.J. Howard. These are not prospects. Austin Hooper's a two-time Pro Bowler. Yeah. EA. Howard is a beast. He's played at every level. He was great at Alabama, where Josh Jacobs played and other players. They're familiar with him. These guys aren't in here as guys who are going to just make the practice squad. They're going to play. Yeah. So developing a young tight end, the depth of this position with my notes is probably as deep as it gets. The only problem I have here is that all of these great tight ends are going to go early to teams that need tight ends. Right. So you want to get Joe Burrow a tight end. You want to get Jalen Hurts a tight end, whatever. You're probably not going to wait till the 6th or 7th round because the stars are going to go in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, JT, and just go back last year, and if you looked at our tight end room, we had one of the best tight end rooms in the National Football League. And we talked so much about the impact that our guys are going to have on the upcoming year. Because of injury and whatever, just not that kind of impact. And so we're in a situation now where we have to have playmakers at the tight end position. We're going to run some 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. But to do that, you have to have guys who are versatile, who can block, who can catch, can put themselves in situations where they can be successful. In today's National Football League, to avoid sacks, to allow Jimmy to do his thing, you're going to have a tight end to control the middle of the football field, to have that great combination with the running game. And that's how it happens. You put those linebackers in conflict when you have a tight end who can get on top of them, make a move here, left to right, catch a little ball, turn it into some yard after catch, and be very successful at doing that. We just don't have that right now. We're not sure if we're going to have that.
Yeah, but I don't believe you can burn a 1st or 2nd round pick in this building on a tight end.
You can't.
So how impactful of a tight end are you going to get in the 5th or 6th round?
So what I'm saying here is maybe the kid from Georgia is not going to go in the first 4 or 5 rounds. He's been basically left to be a blocker. He could be a great Gronk, for Las Vegas Raiders, to have someone like Darnell Washington who's 6'7", 240 pounds. You put him out there and you let him road grade somebody to help our offensive running game get going. So that's the kind of tight end that you would be looking for, someone who's specific, either an outstanding blocker or a really good receiving tight end. Those are the kind of guys who are going to be in that 5th, 6th round. Those are the kind of guys you're looking at. Not the complete running backs. Kincaid's not going to be there. The guy's obviously a star, plays for Utah. Meyer's not going to be there from Notre Dame. He's an amazing football player. But again, now the Raiders need to find guys who are role players. Hey, we're going to put you in 12 personnel, and you're just going to roll great. You're going to do an outstanding job blocking. Or we're going to put you in 11 personnel, allow you to split out and use your athleticism as the tight end.
Well, look, the Raiders already have enough players on offense where they're going to have to cut players on offense.
Yeah.
Okay, if you look at the depth chart, they brought in a lot of guys, but some of them are just guys that are there to compete.
Yep.
So when it comes to the two tight ends who are here, I'm good with. Here's what I love about Jimmy Garoppolo. For everybody who's come up to me and say, well, the quarterback move that the Raiders made is a lateral move. Okay, I'll agree with you. You could say Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo, lateral move. But what Garoppolo does more is he wins. He's won playoff games, and he's better in the red zone. And what comes out of this Patriot tree when it comes to quarterbacks, going back to Tom Brady, and every one of his plays was called by Josh McDaniels, is the ball comes out quick to who's ever wide open. Jimmy Garoppolo just worked with Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle. Yeah. Those guys were wide open when they caught the ball. They weren't in double coverage.
Right.
Jimmy overlooked one side. He did a lot of what Rich Gannon did, but Rich won the MVP, where Rich, and you know well, would pump fake to one side, and then someone would spring wide open.
Wide open.
Right? So that's the concept with Garoppolo is the play's going to come in, run the play that we ran all week. The ball's going to come out smooth, right? And it's going to come out quick, and someone's going to be open 2-3 yards in or 9 yards in, and Garoppolo's going to make the right decision. Yeah. If that happens, the offense is pretty much set, other than one offensive lineman who they have to get. Yeah. As we wrap up and we talk about defense again, I believe with all these picks, 12 picks, I believe that 7 have to be impactful. I believe that 4 need to be starters. I believe that 3 of those starters have to be on defense. Plug and play day one. Not coming in the third round going, I'm a linebacker and I'm going to earn my spot. No, you have your spot. We drafted you in the third round to play. Yeah. You're here to start, and let's see if you can live up to that. You got 7, 38, 70, and 100, and I'll go to 109. After that, from 141 all the way through 231, that is the mad scientist, Dave Ziegler, going, I'm going to take round 5 to round 7. I'm going to take 3 of those picks and trade up to the third round or the fourth round and get me one more starter. Okay. Because you better get one at 7, 38, 70, 100, and 109. Those are 5 picks, not 4 picks. I'm not saying you're going to go 5 for 5, EA. Right. But you better thread the needle and go 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 4 with guys who come in here ready to play defense, and then Patrick Graham goes, I got my guys. Then he'll have another year of free agency, another draft to button the whole thing up.
Okay, so I'm saying, going along with that, that means defensive tackle hopefully is there. So you get him. He's plug and play. You come back in somewhere. You get a corner who's not versatile, who's not going to be able to go from inside to outside, but he can start. He's going to be a really good player outside, right? And then you're talking about linebacker. Yeah. Finding a way to get a linebacker somewhere. Someone is going to, like we talk about, someone's going to be able to be in the middle of the football field and take advantage of that big tackle in front of you. Smart guy. I want a Greg Beaker type guy. That's who I want at middle linebacker.
Let's go back out to the draft party moments ago. Our own Lincoln Kennedy caught up with Dylan Parham.
Good to see both of you. I'm going to step out of the way, handle business.
So, Dylan, there goes a lot of hype into this moment for a lot of young men. And you experienced that last year, being the Raiders' first pick. Take the audience back to that experience and how it felt for that moment for you to hear your name called.
That moment definitely was crazy for me. Just thinking back, of course, you get a lot of people who are gonna say, "Hey, we like you here. We'll take you here." And so, just thankful that the Las Vegas Raiders were the one that pulled me during that time period. It was a lot of emotions. Obviously, you're sitting through that entire period, and that day feels like the longest day of your life. And so for me, I just kept praying, just kept hoping that I went to the team that had the right fit for me. And so for me, just being able to get drafted at 90 overall here was the best feeling I could have.
Tell the audience about the feeling about the first 48 hours, 24 or 48 hours, after you hear your name called. I've experienced, I know a lot of guys experienced, but talk to the audience about just that overwhelming emotion and all that running around you have to do.
Definitely. So immediately for me, I spent one more night in Atlanta. And the first call, obviously, was Dave. And I talked to Josh a little bit. And then from there, I talked to Tom Jones. Coach Carmen called me. And then the list went on. And then from there, I had to turn my notifications off on Instagram and Twitter because they definitely got blew up that night. And so the next couple of hours, I was just making sure, okay, I got to grab this. I got to get these clothes, shoes, and everything because I'm about to head out soon and start working.
We're talking with Dylan Parham, the starting guard for the Raiders. Dylan, it's got to be gratifying to be a part of a unit that has a running back that leads the league in rushing. Talk about that experience last year and how everything kind of came together, thrown together, but finally came together.
Yes, obviously at the beginning of the season we just had a lot of people, and we're just trying to get together, working together. Obviously me being a younger, new player, it takes time to get together, get those fists together, and understand how it is that we need to work together. And so finally when we had the good product and obviously the rushing leader, it feels good because we don't get really many accolades. You hear our names when it's a holding or it's a penalty or things like that, but to have the rushing leader behind us, it definitely feels great. And to have that accolade for him, obviously just see our teammate elevate his game and rise, it's just always good to know that we had a little hand in that.
What did you learn about your game and yourself last year? Being thrown to the Wolves very early, probably didn't expect to come in and start as a rookie, but being it so as a May, coming in, thrown to the Dogs early. What did you learn about your game as the season progressed?
For me, I just learned that the game is really fast, and so the more reps you get, the more opportunity you're going to have, the game is going to slow down for you. And so those first couple weeks, I was just really trying to fill it out. And for me, I was nervous because I was just like, these guys are all fast, they're strong, and I wanted to see how I really felt against them. And so with me in the first game against the Chargers, it was a really good test for me to be like, okay, I can really play with these guys. And so for myself, just being more comfortable and confident, and then with myself playing those three positions in the interior early on those first 5 weeks, it just made me know that I'm supposed to be here.
What impressions have you had from your new starting quarterback, Jimmy G?
What's that?
What impressions have you seen from Jimmy G so far?
Oh, yeah, great leader, man. I'm excited to be with him. Just seeing him in the weight room, the way he carries himself, the way he talks to the guys, I'm excited for him.
All right, nice job by Lincoln and Dylan there. He's having fun. Now Dylan gets taken third last year. Now he's at the party. Right on the strip, he's at the party.
And we're here.
Great. Lincoln Kennedy, no doubt about it. As we wrap this up, this could be cornerback you for you.
Yeah,
you can have a cornerback downstairs, and I know you like to mentor.
Yeah.
That's a big part of your legacy is going down and maybe seeing a corner every week. And if the Raiders don't get a corner at 7, they'll get one later in the draft. But I think that we're proven today from everyone we had on, we're really excited. And we're not just saying it. We are really excited for the opportunity for this draft to be great.
A difference maker.
And it's got to be a difference maker.
It really does have to be a difference maker today, and hopefully it's on defense so we can really get after guys, because you win championships and division titles with your defense. You have to find a way to get those kind of players who make those great plays at the end of games to seal it with the interception or a sack strip fumble. How great was it when we beat the Patriots and with the straight arm and Chandler Jones finishing with a touchdown? Those are the kind of impact plays we're expecting from someone today.
That's Eric Allen. I'm JT. Thanks to Lincoln Kennedy, Vinny Bonsignor, and again, for everyone at Silver and Black Productions, we want to thank you for being here with us on all the platforms, YouTube, Raiders.com, Twitter. Fantastic feedback, and we really appreciate it. We're going to do it again tomorrow, back on Monday on Raider Nation Radio, and all throughout Raiders.com and Silver and Black Productions. You'll be behind the scenes of the 2023 draft. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening.
You're listening to Upon Further Review. I'm your host, Eddie Pascal.
Good morning, Raider Nation.
Welcome to Raiders Roundtable. JT along with Q Myers.
He dissects the play quickly and makes the move to the football.
Hey, I'm Matt Millen, and this is my draft story. I was the 43rd pick in the 1980 draft in the second round for the Oakland Raiders. So it was an interesting time. I had a back injury, and it was a disc, and it was not healing very well. And so I only played in 3 games my senior season at Penn State. By the time the draft came around, I was asked to go to different teams to get physicals. And so every team that I went to, and there were quite a few, I failed every physical except for one. And that was with Dr. Don Fink with the Oakland Raiders.
The Oakland Raiders wasting very little time. They picked up Matt Millen, defensive tackle from Penn State, 6'1" and 1/4 inches tall.
The phone did ring, and they said, hey, this was the Oakland Raiders. That happened to be while I was sitting in the local Burger King. So I was sitting with my buddy Leo Wisniewski. I had my usual number of Whoppers, which was 3, and Leo had 2. And they said Penn State's Matt Millen was taken with the 43rd pick in the second round to the Oakland Raiders. And I looked up at Leo and I said, they're going to play me at linebacker. And Leo reached across and grabbed my Whopper and said, then you won't be needing this anymore. And he started eating it. And that's how I became an Oakland Raider. It all worked out just like it was supposed to.
Every audition is super special, and that's the first moment that you and your team bond and click. Being with my sisters and dancing is just unlike any other feeling I've ever experienced.
Fans, you can upgrade your event experience to the best seats in the house with our premium seating options. Now is your chance to enjoy an unforgettable time with family and friends in our state-of-the-art suite and loge seats. Limited inventory is available for all upcoming events. So be sure to visit Raiders.com/suites today to learn more about our premium seating offering.
It is draft season, and with that, it's our pleasure now to welcome you to the Raiders NFL Draft Podcast.
This is a very exciting time. We get a chance to join the nation, Raider Nation, talk a little bit about the draft.
The Raiders very well positioned in terms of draft resources, draft capital.
This will be a fascinating watch as we get closer to the draft and kind of see how the Raiders put the pieces of the puzzle together.
We've got a lot to cover here over the next 8 weeks, and so excited to be here on this Raiders NFL Draft Podcast.